At one point, seeing in the lectionary that the love your enemies, do unto others passage was coming up, that would have been cause for me to be quite at ease. Comfortable preaching. Love your enemies, Christianity 101. But I've realised that teaching, that commandment, it must hit different depending on your background, your life experience. At an individual level, this teaching can mean one thing if enemies are few and far between. That the very word itself seems kind of abstract and extreme. It means another if the closest thing that comes to mind is going to the Dockers versus the Eagles. Eagles supporters, the door, the set, no. It means something very, very different if you have known enemies as people in your own household, the ones you're meant to be able to trust above all others. At a more macro level, I suspect this teaching would be quite different and would be very powerful to be heard preached on by one of my colleagues from South Sudan who came to Perth as refugees, who literally have bullet scars on their bodies. It would have hit different for those whom Jesus was speaking with, a nation under occupation by Rome. How does one receive this word from the Lord if you're a committed Christian in Gaza, possibly forced from your home to make way for a Riviera or something? With the creative reframing of reality this past week, casting Ukraine as the aggressor in the war, which lays open a very real possibility of Russian conquest. How do you begin to process this as a Ukrainian Orthodox Christian, looking across at Russian adherents of the Orthodox Christian faith, remembering the years of aggression, hundreds of thousands of people killed? These words by Jesus are not bloodless, they're not cheap, they're not easy. We can actually, and should at times, let them just seep into our being as a soothing balm, a reminder of the love of God, a comforting cue to soak in the beauty of the faith of Jesus Christ and the potential for simplicity in discipleship. Very valid. But also, these words remind us of all that runs contrary to the will of God, the depth of wickedness in people. It calls to mind for me the flood narrative in Genesis. It says in chapter 6, "The Lord saw that the wickedness of humans was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. And the earth was corrupt in God's sight. The earth was filled with violence." Also, the complete depravity in the book of Judges, the breakdown of systems leading to an individualism in which all the people did what was right in their own eyes, which actually caused immense harm to those people. When it comes down to it, if I'm honest, I don't even want to love my enemies. And I don't even really have good enemies breathing down my neck in close proximity. So it would be most challenging to hear what this passage means to a Christian who knows what it is to walk the talk on this, who knows what it is to be a faithful Christian, a strong man or woman of God, who knows about enemies in the sense that Jesus meant. And we will do very well to cast our attention ahead in the Gospels and seeing how Jesus lived out this teaching in himself by walking the way of the cross. This is a pattern of living which is unnatural in a sense, because it reflects that which is just so far beyond human nature. But it's true nonetheless. And really, what do the alternatives look like? What do the alternatives look like? One of the, in my opinion, greatest of the Lord's servants in the 20th century, Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I'm concerned about a better world. I'm concerned about justice. I'm concerned about brotherhood. I'm concerned about truth. And I say to you, I have also decided to stick with love. For I know that love is ultimately the only answer to humankind's problems. And I'm going to talk about it everywhere I go. I know it isn't popular to talk about it in some circles today. And I'm not talking about emotional bosh when I talk about love. I'm talking about a strong, demanding love. For I have seen too much hate. And I say to myself that hate is too great a burden to bear. I decided to love." He was assassinated 6 months later. And I read something else just this week, which I think speaks into it all quite powerfully. It's a reflection by a guy named Father Ronald Rolheiser on Mary, Mother of the Lord, being at the foot of the cross at his crucifixion. And I'm just going to quote word for word on this. "Everything inside us demands justice, screams for it, and refuses to remain silent in the presence of injustice. That's a healthy instinct, and sometimes acting on it is good. We need at times to protest, to shout, to literally throw ourselves into the face of injustice, do everything in our power to stop the crucifixion. But there are times too, when things have gone so far that shouts and protests are no longer helpful. Darkness is going to have its hour, come what may, and all we can do is to stand under the cross and help eat its bitterness by refusing to participate in its energy. In those situations, like Mary, we have to say, I can't stop this crucifixion, but I can stop some of the hatred, bitterness, jealousy, brute heartlessness, and darkness that surround it. I can't stop this, but I will not conduct its hatred." So to love our enemies is not to deny the pain they cause us or the injustice that is done. It's not a passive or easy surrender to wrong. Christian just war theory has a lot to commend. Ukraine is right to defend itself. But there is a choice. There comes a point where there is a choice. A decision to stop the cycle of hate, to resist the urge to perpetuate the violence. We have the power of choice to refuse to take part in the hate. And I think in doing that, we stand with Christ.